Welcome to Boss.
I wish I were a boss. I'm not a boss. I'm a professor, but it's great to talk to you, Ali. Eager to dive in.
Boss is my exciting new LinkedIn video content series where I interview my badass executive network to help others learn, network, and pay it forward in this crazy new normal that is 2020. We connected the other night at a Joseph Wharton Leadership Award. And I thought, one, I need to have you on my show because when you think about, the future of work and marketing and tips for people, in this economy right now and in this job market, that was 100% you. And number two, I think we can test out like a little bit of a social selling experiment that we can get to later.
So, professor of marketing at the Wharton School, been doing that for 34 years, but trying to be really practical about it. So taking a lot of the models and theories and concepts and methods and bringing them to the real world, trying to get people to understand these methods, to use them, to appreciate them, to change their decisions and actions on the basis of them. So really just trying to build a bridge between the academic world and the commercial world.
I was undergrad Wharton. I was class of 2001, not to completely age myself. And this year looks different, right? The Wharton School has gone full virtual, full remote. How is that going?
We're all learning, which is kind of surprising because usually as the professors, we're just dishing out the learning, but having to confront with this with new technology, new modalities, it's probably been, believe it or not, the biggest boost to just kind of our teaching capabilities that I've ever seen. Now, it's still lousy. It's not the same as being in the classroom, but the idea of having to embrace technology, the idea of having to think very carefully about what should we cover in the classes and how to, kind of chunk it up into different modules so people don't have to stare at the screen so long, and how to work on student interactions and grading and stuff like that. We've been put more time and effort into teaching and content development than ever before. And of course, I hope that we get back into the classroom soon, but even then, that we bring some of these improved practices with us.
We know digital transformation is accelerated like 5x plus. And so I actually think this is probably like not an experiment, but good for the students to understand how to function also in this highly digital world right now and how to conduct a meeting like this.
It's a really good point, Alex. It's more than just the COVID. Again, I don't want to age you either, but since you were on campus, so much has happened. Forget about the campus part, but just think about the whole digital revolution. All the D2C stuff. Those three letters would have meant absolutely nothing when you were wandering around campus. But you look at just how companies are changing, how consumers are changing, the kinds of data we have available, targeting technologies, personalization. So a lot of that stuff has been finding its way into conventional business, but now there's nothing conventional anymore. And I think when we get to the other side of this crisis, again, putting aside just the distancing, all that stuff, it's just kind of a clean slate, a new mindset. And so let's take some of the practices that have been bubbling up, and instead of just framing them within business as usual, let's now let them really fly.
You're not a boss per se, you are a boss professor, and you are creating the next generation of bosses. And so when you look at leaders and CEOs and kind of the next generation and the existing generation, what do you think are the most important qualities for those executives today and your students who are going to be, growing up into those roles?
Yeah, so a really big part is being open-minded, is being curious, is asking questions and saying, how can I do this better? Instead of just, how can I do this conventionally? How can I do this in kind of a safe, cover my ass kind of way, which is unfortunately the way things have been. And it's not a knock against leaders of the previous generation. Perhaps it's just something just about the culture we're in. But now that we're just sort of throwing everything up in the air and saying, and you look at all the companies that are boasting about how agile they've been and they've done 10 years of R&D in the last 10 weeks and all that sort of thing. I think those characteristics, just to try stuff, to be resourceful, to bend the rules a little bit, well, I mean, maybe not bend the rules, but bend the conventional ways of doing things a little bit. That's where we're finding success. And I want that kind of
Mhm.
maverick thinking to become more rule than exception. And again, I think that the changes that we're going through are going to facilitate a lot of that.
I agree. I mean, well, I am the atypical Wharton student. I sold out for the wine and the sushi, right? I took an investment banking role and quickly realized that I had no interest in doing finance. And very quickly after a year was able to transition into 12 years of an executive career at Viacom and then 5 years at GA with a Wharton founder there, Jake Schwartz. And so again, now I'm, it's no secret, like my global team and role was eliminated in August due to COVID cost cutting. And it's so fun to be able to take some risk, like, financially responsible risk, but take some risks and kind of see what happens, which I think is so important in this time.
It's worth it. And just following the standard path because it's safe. I know it's going to get me there. That's not enough anymore. And I think that COVID has just sort of blown open this generational change. And again, it's not just for students, it's for executives, it's for professors, it's for everybody. Let's go out there and try stuff.
I love it. Okay, so Peter, one of the topics that we spoke about at the Joseph Wharton Awards event was leading through crisis.
When it all started, okay, and when I found out that all of a sudden, instead of walking to Chipotle or Shake Shack or Sweetgreen and paying cash to get my salads, burgers, and burritos, had to download the apps. And so, and I never had any of those things loaded before. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, whoa, these companies now can track much more about what I'm buying. They can learn much more about me and other customers, and they should just be much smarter as a result of COVID. I've been really disappointed about how companies haven't embraced the new data, the new kinds of interactions, the new ways of understanding customers. In fact, as they started to kind of shrink to get through COVID, it's a lot of the data analytics people were the first ones to be furloughed. So yes. I want to go back to my point before, which is you got to be curious, you got to be resourceful, you got to say, how do I take this messy situation and not just get through it, but make something better out of it? How do I use it to leverage myself into learning and doing and experimenting in ways that either I couldn't have before or I just wouldn't have made it as high a priority?
I think that's smart. And maybe the optimist in me wants to think that, they're using the data and it's going to happen, but maybe it hasn't happened fast enough.
And along these lines, I think it's actually too early for us to tell. We know some of the folks who won right away. A company like Wayfair, for instance,
Yes.
You're stuck at home. You're going to do your work from home. You got to get some new furniture. You can't go to a furniture store. So, they're an obvious winner in the short run, and more power to them. But the question is, in the long run, who will have, learned enough, collected the data, changed their infrastructure and their organizations to be able to find ongoing growth from it.
What I'd love to challenge you and your students, and kind of knowing where you sit in this marketing role and at Wharton, how do we very quickly test the waters on social selling?
Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know, social selling has multiple definitions, but at the end of the day, it's about being a thought leader, driving the conversation, and very quickly kind of liking, commenting, sharing, and kind of letting that content grow. So at the end of the day, those relationships, that content, that thought leadership leads to revenue or commerce, right?
I'm all in.
What is the most important skill that leaders need for the future of work?
Creativity.
One piece of advice for future bosses.
Just be nice.
One thing that you'll commit to do in 2020 to help pay it forward.
I think what I need to do is to take on more kind of non-academic mentees, something that I've rarely done, because usually as a professor, I stay inside my box. But again, as an entrepreneur, I have more of an obligation to be doing more of that mentoring outside of the academic institution.
What do you want to be known for over the next 6 to 12 months?
4 letters, CBCV, customer-based corporate valuation. That's the cool thing I'm working on these days, is trying to get the folks in finance to better appreciate what marketing models can do for them.
Are you going to commit to help me social sell this boss episode with your network?
Yeah, because not only do I owe it to you, Allie, but I owe it to myself. Super fun talking to you. I'm just so eager to see where you and where Boss goes and grows. And I'm going to join you on that mission as well.